Oh, yes, it is. Hi, Will.
Hello, Piers.
Sorry.
Oh, bless you.
Hello.
Right on cue.
At least I'd done it before we started.
Yeah.
They all got aliases.
I'm allergic to Zoom.
Yeah.
Hello.
It's very common
Lizzie
allergy.
appears to be
Yeah.
hiding. Lizzie appears to be hiding.
Am I hiding?
Somebody
Lizzie,
is.
somebody is hiding.
I think.
Oh, that'll be Vanessa, who's managing people, getting them in and out of the Zoom room
Oh,
with
Zoom
us, so that we just.
No, little girl.
Hi, Lizzie.
Ages ago. It's fun to join in.
Lizzie's shy.
She's just not done this before, so. I'm muted. No, I'm unmuted, aren't I? Yeah.
No, we can hear you, Will.
Yes, okay, I'll just carry on talking crap, yeah. I was saying it sounded a fun thing. Hi, Zelda. What do you think?
Hi there.
Missed a lot of them. We missed a lot of these, but I saw it was a kids thing, so we thought it would be funny. It's the right mental age for me as well.
We're going to start now in a couple of minutes. YouTube is live, so there's Stuart's going to be just keeping an eye on that and putting in links and stuff as you're reading, so that people can follow up.
And sorry, do we need to mute ourselves, Zelda?
You don't need to worry about that. I'll manage that. So.
Thank you.
I should put some music on while we're waiting. You can talk amongst yourselves now, just till we're ready to hit the start. So. Ooh. Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Time to go.
Yay.
Woohoo! There's Abby. Okay.
Is that the Simon Cowell?
I hope so.
Is Simon. He's not.
He's
Hi,
Simon Cowell.
No. Hi, Simon Cowell, who's lovely.
It threw me when we were doing the screen test, actually, Cressida. It's like, who's Simon Cowell? Then I made the connection with the surname.
Yeah, the future is set in his, I don't know why, it's in his thing. Anyway, yes, my husband is called Simon Cowell, which is, which you get a lot of disappointed people when you turn up. It's really annoying.
Oh, man.
Poor relieved people.
I know. Oh, okay. He started sort of booking restaurants and things in his own name. Because people it's kind of a bit depressing. You turn up somewhere and it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you've got the very best table in the house.
Right. We're just about ready to kick off now. Everyone started to gather on the YouTube, and I think shall I start the event? Let's do it.
Do this.
Yay.
Great. Okay, I'm going to temporarily mute everybody, except for me, obviously. Okay. So welcome to the Brixton Youth Book Jam. We've got a really cracking lineup for you this time. You've got to make yourself comfortable. Hope you've got a nice cup of cocoa or whatever you would like to drink. Parents who might have a sneaky glass of wine. We're going to be starting now with our first writer, and the way that the event's going to run is we've got 3 writers in set 1, the wonderful Cressida Cowell, Maximilian Hawker and Piers Torday. Then we're going to have a musical interlude subject to Molly having a kip at the right time, with the wonderful Bookshop band who are going to play us a song. Then we'll go into set 2, which will be Finbar Hawkins, Loris Owen and Jasbinder Bilan. And that's a good little reminder that I'm going to turn my phone to silent. So you'll all be muted while people are reading, and then I'll unmute you when you want to have, give them a good old round of applause to appreciate the stuff that they've been doing. If you've got any questions or would like to know anything about the readings, about the writers. There's a little chat window that says chat on the Zoom, or you can leave questions in the YouTube feed, and then I can ask the questions on your behalf when the person's finished reading. And apart from that, let's start with our first reader, who is going to be Cressida Cowell. I'm sure she needs very little introduction, but I will anyway. She is currently the Waterstones Children's Laureate 2019 to 2022, as well as the author and illustrator of the best-selling The Wizards of Once and How to Train Your Dragons book series. She's also written the Emily Brown picture books, illustrated by Neil Layton. She's an ambassador for the National Literary Trust and the Reading Agency, a trustee of World Book Day, and a founder patron of the Children's Media Foundation. She's won numerous prizes, including the Blue Peter Book Award. I've got a feeling that might be her favorite one. She'll be reading from her new book, The Wizards of Once, Never and Forever. So without further ado, I give you Cressida. Oops. Sorry.
Hello, hi. I'm Cressida Cowell, and I'm going to read from my latest book, which is Wizards of Once, Never and Forever. But just so that in case you haven't heard, I just wanted to update you on the story in the previous 4 books. It's about, it's set in a world, this is the first one, where magic really existed 3,000 years ago, when real magic existed. It started once there was magic. It was a long, long time ago in the British Isles, so old it did not know it was the British Isles left, and the magic lived in the dark forests. And this is a world that is cut in two. It's cut in two along the lines of this map. The wizards and the warriors are fighting each other to the death in the wild woods. And the two heroes, it's a story of two heroes who are brought up on opposite sides of the map. The boy Tsar is from a wizard tribe, but he has no magic, and he would do anything to get it. And the girl Wish is from a warrior tribe, but she owns a banned magical object, and she would do anything to conceal it. Yeah. So that's the setup. I'm really doing well. 3 books and set up. Yeah. So they're fighting to each other to the death. The two heroes have to join together to fight these really scary people called the witches. I am so sorry about the witches. They are really scary, and they have to get their parents to realize that instead of fighting each other, they should be fighting the flipping witches. Yeah. So at the beginning of Wizards Once, Never and Forever, Wish and Tsar are looking, they're searching. The witches are about to take over the wild woods, and Wish and Tsar have to find the ingredients in a spell to get rid of witches, because Tsar has also, he'll do anything to get magic. So he's got this witch stain, which is taking him to the dark side. Yeah. And his sprite Squeeze Juice has been captured by the King Witch, who is really scary. So it begins. By the way, can I just show you underneath the cover, by the way? I'm so proud. Anybody who's a children's book author will love this. My designer made it so beautiful. Look at that. Love is greater than witches, and true love lasts forever. Sorry, thank you, Sam Perrott, my designer. Anyway, this is the beginning, first chapter. I like to start things off rather excitingly. So they are a mile underground. This is my nightmare. A mile underground, the heroes, in the mine of happiness. Can you see them? Not very happy. And this is the bad moment when they realize that Tsar has been holding the map in the spelling book in the wrong hand. So they've been going in the wrong direction. Okay, so this is this bad moment. Oh my goodness. Guys, said Tsar, I'm so sorry, but I think we may have a bit of a problem. Okay. Wish and Tsar peered over Tsar's shoulder. It was just as they suspected. When the spelling book was in his left hand, the one without the witch stain, the illustrations on the map of the Mine of Happiness changed in front of their eyes, and now the little images of themselves appeared to be crawling in entirely the wrong direction. And the crude cartoons of Wish, Tsar and Boggin were no longer looking happy, but extremely frightened and anxious. And there's a signal that says, beware of the tassel worm. Oh, for mistletoe's sake. Yeah. What's that funny smell? Hissed Tiffenstall. Her little heart was, that's the sprite, her little heart was lit up with such anxiety that you could see it glowing with fear in her little matchstick of a chest. A stink so noxious it made Wish's stomach heave, came reeking and oiling out of this tunnel behind them. It was accompanied by a scream so loud and piercing in that narrow place that it pricked the eardrums like the nick of a knife. In the tunnel behind them, 2 glowing eyes appeared. The tassel worm, part cat, part dragon, heart of darkness. Let's get out of here anyway. They run away. I'm doing this very, very quickly because I haven't got long. They run away and they get stuck. This is my nightmare, by the way, getting stuck a mile under the ground. This is the moment they get stuck and they're jammed tight, and Wish is on one side, Bodkin is in the middle, and Tsar is left to face the tassel worm, and the enchanted spoon is going mad. The dreadful smell was now so sickly near that Tsar had to put his hand over his face to defend his nostrils from the ghastly poison of it. There was a horrible pause, and then with startling suddenness, a great clawed hand came shooting out of the darkness and trapped Tsar beneath it. There we are, that's the end of chapter 1. Thank you.
That was lovely. Thank you very much, Cressida.
My pleasure. Did I come in on time? I can't do anything in 5 minutes. I was trying to get what was that to tell?
I mean, that was lovely. I mean, usually we never would get anyone off the stage. Just whatever feels right is a good amount. Never, we've never done that. Someone did once read for 22 minutes, which was a bit long. We still didn't throw them off the stage because we're so good.
I do what I'm told.
No, that was lovely. I love the way you set the scene. That was great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I didn't want you not to know what on earth was going on.
Well,
Anyway,
I know the dragon books, but I'm not that familiar with the Wizards of Once and Forever. So it was nice having an introduction.
To write about magic. I mean, magic is such heaven to write about.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get away with it with the grown-up books, but it's a bit harder to get away with, I find. So, yeah. Although Finbar has also written about magic, and I think very magic realist. So we've got a good theme of magic going on, I think, today. I'm going to introduce the next writer now, who's going to be Maximilian Hawker. I'm just going to mute everyone else just so that we can hear him read. Max Hawker lives in Croydon, South London, with his wife and 2 daughters. He's the author of Breaking the Folds and the forthcoming Rory Hobble and the Voyage to Hallygogan. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly, Max. They're both published by Unbound, and you can get Breaking the Folds, which was set in ancient Greece already, and the Voyage to Hallygogan will be coming out very soon. Since childhood, he's suffered with a severe obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, and does media advocacy on behalf of the charity OCD Action as and when he can. He also works full-time in frontline children's social care, supporting looked after children and care leavers. So he's actually a very busy person. And Max's book, as he will explain to you, is supported by and supports the OCD Action. So he's really doing a great job of getting people to understand a condition that's very often misunderstood. So Max can explain this much better than me. So I'm going to let him do that now. Take it away, Max.
Thank you, Zelda. Appreciate it. You've done a pretty good job of it, to be quite honest. I mean, what I wanted to do with this book was to write something that I would have liked to have read myself when I was a child and I was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, because I read a lot and there was no character in any book that I'd read who had OCD, so I couldn't relate to anyone. And it's only kind of now, as a grown-up, that I've been able to write something that I would like to have read when I was a child. So That was the idea with Rory Hobble and the Voyage to Hallygoggin. I'm going to be reading an extract from the second chapter. Just as a bit of background, so far in the first chapter, some mysterious lights have appeared in the night sky, and there is thinking that it might be aliens. And our hero Rory we find on the way back home from school, and he's starting to realize that strange things are happening, but they're about to become a lot stranger with the event that I'm going to read. So here we go. The rest of the day passed without incident, and as the afternoon unraveled, the overcast sky opened and torrential rain set in. When school finally ended, Rory set off home using his maths book to cover his head, water sliding off the laminate in great streams. I wish I was laminated, Rory grumbled inwardly. He missed the 3:03 by a matter of seconds, and the display at the shelter-free bus stop flashed a red 13 minutes, indicating what seemed an eternity until the next one was due to arrive. So he decided to walk home as briskly as he could instead. Alone with his thoughts, Rory tried to imagine what the new social worker would be like. The last one had been quite a forgetful person, and though infrequent, her visits had always brought the worst out in his mum. It had been years since the first worker, and since then there had been, what was it now, 7 separate people come into his life, and this Lemon, Lily, whatever her name was to be the 8th. He looked up at the glowering sky and pressed on a little quicker, not wishing to upset his mum by being late. The consequences were not worth thinking about. Turning a corner and hurrying past a group of hooded youths, Rory caught a glimpse down an alleyway of flashing ginger shapes, aggressive yaps accompanying their movement. Curious, he stopped and focused. In the shadow of a house, in a semicircle of wheelie bins and dumpsters, stood at least 12 foxes of various sizes, snapping and swiping at each other in their attempts to reach something on the ground. Rory took a few steps down the alleyway, school shoes squelching in a gruel of gravel and mud. The something on the ground seemed as though it was trying to move. "Hey, get out of there! Go on!" Rory yelled at the foxes, realizing that they must be attacking some kind of animal. 1 or 2 of their number looked dimly up at him, but peculiarly, they all remained where they were, sticky snouts sniffling and snuffling for their quarry, slick teeth glinting. "I said, get out of it!" Rory yelled again, this time running at the foxes, the scavengers finally scattering. As the last of the foxes scrambled up a garden fence, Rory reached the bins and looked down at the something on the ground. At first, he thought it must be a sort of rugby ball tied up in a blue bin bag. But no, he hadn't been imagining things a moment ago. It was definitely moving. Kneeling down, tossing his maths book to one side and rubbing some of the rain from his eyes, he took a closer look. Whatever it was, it looked like a miniature whale, but its gleaming, rubbery hide was a palette of swirling purples, blues and greys. It seemed to be lying on its side. Along its back were what looked to be crystals, lilac in colour, sticking out like the unruly hair of an anime character. 4 great black beads of varying size near the front may have been eyes. And under its neck and on its belly, triplet bubbles tried pathetically to expand. The bubbles reminded Rory of a frog's throat as it ribbits. Whatever this thing was, it clearly didn't belong in the mud outside a semi-detached house in South London. "Hey, what are you?" Rory mumbled, reaching out with a tentative hand. The creature responded with the strangest noise, a mournful, high-pitched song tinged with a bass that seemed to have been summoned from a depth it did not possess. Rory touched his head, rubbed at his temple. For one moment, it seemed as though there was a flare of imagery in his mind, but it was gone as quickly as it came. For the first time, Rory noticed a dark substance ebbing out from under the creature. "Are you hurt?" The creature rumbled and tried to inflate its little bubbles again, but then, With a rattle, deflated one final time. It went completely still and quiet. Rory looked it up and down, panic sweeping over him. No, don't be dead, little guy, he willed. Hesitantly, he laid hands on the creature's belly. Cold and wet, the texture of rubber. The darkness still flowed out from under it. So he turned the animal over to find a single bite wound. Gritting his teeth, he pulled his school blazer off and pressed it against the wound, holding it for several minutes. The creature did not stir in that time. Rory became aware of hungry eyes at the periphery of his vision. The foxes had smelled blood and returned. Come on, you ridiculous thing, wake up, Rory hissed, shaking the creature. Still, it didn't move. Rory recalled a first aid video he once saw in which someone had stopped breathing, with a paramedic pressing down on his chest and counting. Holding his hands in the way he remembered, Rory pressed them into the belly of the creature and began compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4, he puffed aloud. Nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4, still nothing. Rory ran a hand through his sodden hair, white shirt clinging to his body like a damp kitchen roll. He lifted a hand, clenched it into a fist and brought it down hard on the creature's belly. The crystals on its back flickered, with light, surely, just for a moment. He hit the creature again, definitely light, a pinkish glow channeling through the crystals. He lifted both fists and brought them down with all his might, whack, into the belly. The crystals lit up again and remained lit. The bubbles inflated. The creature shook and released gas from several orifices under its tail so violently that it launched like a rocket all of 2 meters straight into a wheelie bin, which it hit with a dump before dropping pitifully back into the mud. Rory leapt back in surprise. The foxes scattered once more. Ha! You did it! Rory chuckled, both to himself and the creature, which wriggled about like a fish out of water. Perhaps it is a fish out of water, Rory theorized. Looking up at the sky, he momentarily considered the possibility that more of these creatures might start to rain down. Suddenly, he realized how long he had been down this alley, how much darker the sky was. He couldn't leave this thing behind, though. Ripping open his school bag, he chucked in his maths book, then picked up the creature, pressing his blazer into its wound once again, and stuffed it into the bag as well. It was surprisingly light, considering it looked to be a shrunken version of the heaviest animal to have ever lived. It gazed up at him from the bag, each of its eyes, 4 on the left and 4 on the right of what must be its face, shiny with apparent emotion and gratitude. Rory looked down at it. Oh, don't look at me like that. I'm going to be in enough trouble as it is. But the creature simply nodded, emitting a contented rumbling noise from deep within its belly. And that's it. That's my reading from the book. I hope you enjoyed it.
Really great. Thanks so much, Matt.
Great.
Brilliant. Really looking forward to reading that book.
Sorry, I went
Do you
on
have
for a
any
little bit
idea
longer than I
whether-
thought.
Well, we can expect it yet, Max. Have you been given a release date?
Yeah, so it's going to be the 1st of July, 2021.
Okay.
And if anyone's watching this and you're a younger member of the audience and you fancy reading the book in advance, then I am looking for some people to do that. So if your parents want to contact me on Twitter, I'll be very happy to provide the book to a few people.
That's great, Max. And for everybody, I've put some of Max's details into the chat window. So if you're on Zoom and also on the YouTube, you should see that I'll be putting bios and links up to the writers as we go through. So cool. Okay, thanks very much for the round of applause. The next writer that I'm going to introduce, so I've got a little echo for some reason. Let's just find out why that is. The next writer I'm going to introduce is Piers Torday. So I'm just going to mute everyone for now. Piers began his career in theatre and then television as a producer and writer. His first book for children, The Last Wild, was shortlisted for the Waterstones Children's Book Award and nominated for the Philip Carnegie Medal. His second book, The Dark Wild, won the Guardian Children's Fiction Prize. There May Be a Castle was a People's Book Award finalist and a Times Children's Book of the Year. And The Lost Magician was a book of the year in 6 national newspapers and won the Teach Primary Book Award. He's going to be reading to you tonight from his follow-up to that, The Frozen Sea, which has just been published. And actually, I'm proud to say that this is Piers's second appearance at the Kids Book Jam, because he appeared for us in 2014 when we did one before. So thank you so much, Piers, for coming back. We're really, really happy to have you. I'm just going to unmute you now. And there you go.
Hello, everybody. It's lovely to be here back on Brixton Book Jam. Thank you very much for having me. I hope you're all well. Tonight, I'm going to be reading this book, The Frozen Sea, not the whole book, just a bit of it. And that is the second book in a series, which begins with this book, The Lost Magician. And The Lost Magician begins right at the end of the Second World War, and 4 children who have survived it. And their home, unfortunately, is damaged in the war. It's not blown up, it's damaged. So they have to go and live in a house in the country while their parents look for a new home. And they go and stay in a rather mysterious old house in the countryside. And exploring it, they discover what appears to be a magical library. And the library admits them to a world called Folio, which is the land of the imagination. And there, these children have just fled one war, but they in fact discover another, because stories, who of course live in a library, are at war with the other things that live in a library, which are facts. And I'm not going to spoil what happens in that book, but to say, safe to say, some of the children survive. And the next book, The Frozen Sea, which I'm reading from, actually begins many years later. It's in 1984, and it involves someone who might be related to those children, called Jewel. That's her there. And Jewel is at school in Newcastle in 1984, and she's not having a great time, to be honest. She's having a rather miserable time because she's clever and likes to speak her mind, and some people don't like that. And so the story begins with her being bullied, which is not very nice. And she is with her best friend, who's not human, very wisely. It's a hamster called Fizz, who's quite vocal, like most hamsters. And as the school day is ending, these bullies chase her and Fizz out of the school. They chase her down the road into the high street of where the school is, and it starts to rain, and Jewel is desperately looking for some way to escape from them. And she suddenly notices an old bookshop that she's never noticed before, which is a bit odd. But she thinks that's a good place to hide, and she dives in. And in all the confusion of the rain and the storm, the bullies run straight past, leaving Jewel and Fizz in the bookshop. And they start to explore it because they're still a bit worried the bullies might be out there looking for them. And it's very dark and mysterious, this bookshop, and the owner doesn't seem to be there, but it is open. And suddenly Jewel hears this noise. And she turns around, and on the floor, as if it's just fallen from somewhere, is this huge old leather atlas. But the atlas isn't of anywhere Jewel's ever heard of. It's of a land called Folio. So with nothing else to do, Jewel opens the atlas and starts to flick through it. But as she does, weird things start to happen, because when she sees, say, a picture of a desert, she feels a hot wind on her face, as if she actually is in a desert. And when she looks at a picture of a sea, it's almost like she can feel drops of water falling from the ceiling. But this can't be happening. She's sure it can't be happening. Folio was not anywhere Jewel recognised, either from school or from her mother's many home geography lessons. There was a land called the Reds, full of woods and rivers, and more drawings of little characters, some of which she recognised from stories and fairy tales. There was a little fairy on a butterfly. Which story was he from again? And then she turned the page. Here was a map of a huge city with thick arteries of streets running up and down, and so many buildings packed in between. It didn't look like any city she knew. There were huge pyramids, twisting helixes rather than skyscrapers, even some flying cars. The city of the Unreds, Jewel read. She fancied that the noise of her own city outside suddenly sounded much louder, and shivered, despite feeling a strange blast of hot air in her face from somewhere, which she tried to ignore. Now, why does that name sound familiar? The next spread was covered by miniature line drawings of trees, plants and streams, jumbled and crowded on top of one another, right to the edge of the paper. Even the scroll announcing the name of this sprawling forest was entangled with creepers, but not so much that Jewel couldn't read the name. The idea jungle. Fizz, I'm beginning to suspect that this map must be of a fictional or imaginary land, said Jewel. Fizz gave a snort, which effectively translated as, you think? As if by answer, a green shoot bearing 2 small leaves inexplicably rose from the spine of the book like a miniature beanstalk. Oh, no, you don't, cried Jewel. No more strangeness, that's it. She tried to slam the book shut, but she couldn't. She tried again. The book wasn't that heavy, yet something was holding the covers down, like they were chained to the floor. Then the green shoot was joined by another, and another, and another, until it looked more like a planted furrow than the paper valley of an open book. Creepers crept out from beneath the cover at an alarming rate, spreading their suckers over the pages. Jewel sprang back in fear, except she couldn't, because something was grabbing at her hands. One of the creepers had flicked itself around her wrists, joined by more creepers binding them tight. More and more vines spilling out of the book spread over the shop floor, coiling themselves around her legs, her waist, pulling her towards the book. Fizz, run! Jewel managed to cry. And then the plant plunged into her mouth, silencing her. In less than a second, another furled out and wrapped itself around Fizz, who was trying to make an ill-judged escape by nibbling a tunnel through collected shipping forecasts 1956 to 1958. Jewel's arms flailed, reaching for anything to hold on to as she got pulled further and further into the book, but only hit the hanging lamp above her head, which swung like an erratic pendulum until its light fell uselessly on another deserted corner of the bookcase. But the light also cast shadows, wriggling, spidery shadows of tendon-like lines of vegetation, multiplying at unnatural speed as they wrapped themselves around, consumed and pulled their victims inexorably towards the one place they didn't want to go. Outside, in the storm-streaked afternoon, Jewel's pursuers ran wearily past one last time, exhausted, soaked, and furious about their vanished quarry. Where'd she go? She can't have just gone. But she had. Thank you.
Brilliant. That's great. Hold on. That was so spooky. I found it really quite shivery when
Happy Halloween.
dragging. Very evocative. Piers, that book's available everywhere now, is it?
It is, I hope so.
Yeah, it should be. Online in bookshops, in libraries, I'm assuming, when people get to them. And just as a reminder, if you look in the little chat window, I've put links up to where you can get people's books and find out more about them. And that's so you can go off and read it. And actually, I'm off to go and get that myself after this. I found it. You know, do you remember Superman? Was it 3 or 4 when they get eaten by the machines and pulled into them? It kind of reminded me a bit of that. It's very spooky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Piers. I'm going to introduce the next interval now. Ben has managed to get the baby to sleep, so that's wonderful. It means that we've got the bookshop band, because I'm going to have to do a little bit of shuffling around. So just let me do some quick wizardry and introduce the bookshop band to you. They're really great. I first heard them in Scotland, up in the Highlands at a wonderful place called Moniac Moor. But they've been playing since 2010 and were formed out of a collaboration between an award-winning independent bookshop, because they're both booksellers, I believe, and a group of musicians writing songs inspired by the books of visiting authors. 13 studio albums later, the band have now worked with over 150 authors from around the world, including Philip Pullman, Joanne Harris, and Robert Macfarlane, and have toured hundreds of bookshops in the UK, Europe, and North America. We're very lucky to have them here with us tonight. They've just released their first live album, recorded on their debut US tour last year, and are currently collaborating on an album with legendary rock musician Pete Townshend. So I present to you Bookshop Band. Take it away.
Well, thank you very much.
Hi there. Oh, lovely to be here.
Slightly dazed.
Did you fall asleep, Ben?
Darker room.
I'm really impressed that you managed to just get it in under the wire.
What are we playing?
Well, it's totally up to you. We were thinking.
Let's do that and Smog and less.
Okay.
Let's start off with this one.
Okay.
Let's start off with this one.
Yeah.
Go for
Do you want to?
Oh yeah.
I'm slightly unsure about where I should be looking, Ben. There's three different things here. There's a camera. There's two computers, and I'm not sure which one.
The camera's, I'm afraid, on my computer.
This one. Okay. Okay, so we're going to start off with a song inspired by a book by Dave Shelton. Oh, I think we've just put the words right in front of my face.
Sorry, very confusing.
We're very professional. We're very, been doing this a lot. So we're going to be doing a song inspired by 13 Chairs by Dave Shelton. And it's about a little boy who sees a light on in a big house that he's just walking past. And I should warn you, it's a kind of a ghost story. But he's just walking past this house and he's really drawn in by the light that is in this house. And he decides that he's really interested in what it could be. So he goes towards this front door and tries it, and he finds that it's open. So he goes inside. And he goes up the stairs and he follows where he thinks this light is coming from. And he gets to another door, and he's still more curious than he is scared. So he decides to open this door as well, and it is indeed open. And he goes inside, and then inside this room he sees that there's a big table, and there are 12 people sitting around this table. And there's one spare chair for this little boy, and this 13th chair. And the people already there invite him to come inside and to come and sit down. And so he does. And he soon realises when they settle down and they stop kind of bickering amongst themselves, that they're each telling a story one by one. And each person has a candle in front of them, which is where this kind of glowing light is coming from. But as they finish their story, they blow the candle out, so it gets darker and darker and darker and darker as the night goes on and the stories are told. But this poor little boy is sitting there thinking, I've no idea what story I'm going to tell. I've no idea what I should say. And that kind of anticipation and suspense that we've all felt when it's our turn to speak, waiting for our turn to speak. And he's there waiting for his turn, wondering what he's going to say. So this is a song also called 13 Chairs, inspired by that.
Stepping further in, welcomed by the light, seeing the others around. Will I make a sound? Will I know the way? What is it that I've found? Listen to the ones, listen to the end, blowing a candle out. Listen to a girl, another candle out, past the door. Stand before me, 13 chairs, unprepared to tell a story. Who'll go next? Past the door. Stand before me, 13 chairs, 13 chairs. Out as the lights go out, as the darkness comes, it's getting closer to me. Will I make a sound? Will I know the way? Starting to see what I found. Listen to the tales, listen to my tale. Another candle out, past the door. Stand before me, 13 chairs. I'm unprepared to tell a story. Who'll go next? Past the door. Stand before me, 13 chairs. I'm unprepared to tell a story. Who'll go next? Past the door. Stand before me, 13 chairs, 13 chairs. Will I make a sound? Will I know the way? What is it that I found? Listen to the ones, listen to the end, blowing a candle out. Will I make a sound? Will I know the way? What is it that I found? Listen to the ones, listen to the end, blowing a candle out, blowing a candle out.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Hooray. Very good.
Very good.
That's great.
Very ethereal.
Yeah.
What did you say the name of the book was again? It was called
Right.
13 Chairs.
Well, it's called 13 Chairs and it's by Dave Shelton. I've no idea.
Oh, sounds like a really interesting book.
Yeah, he's a great writer. For kids and for adults, and probably this is somewhere in between, I would say. It's a good.
Okay.
Great.
Brilliant. Thank you so very much.
That's all right. Would you like to do one more, or how are you for time?
I guess we've got probably enough time to do the other three writers and have a little chat. So
Great,
that's
great.
probably perfect for now. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Very appreciated. Another round of applause for the Bookshop Band. And that, it brings us to the end of our interval. Obviously, when we're doing our live event, sorry, just a minute, Stuart, you're muted. When we're doing our live event, we have an actual interval, but it doesn't make so much sense online. So we have very kind musicians to create the interval for us. So that's really appreciated. The Bookshop Band have got a Patreon. So if you'd like to donate to them for the very beautiful songs that they write, I'll put the link in the chat thing. And that would be really appreciated, because it's very hard to be a musical artist at the moment. Obviously, as you know, there's not so many gigs. So please, I encourage you to go and check out their stuff, because they're very, very talented. The world should hear them. Okay, so next up, we have Finbar Hawkins, who lives in a very beautiful village in the middle of Wiltshire that I'm extremely jealous of. And it's a very magical place, actually.
Very magical.
Which I think feels like maybe partly inspired your book. He's a graduate of the Bath Spa in MA, writing for young people, and actually grew up in Blackheath, London, and now lives in Wiltshire with his family. When he's not writing, he's a creative director for Ardman in Bristol, where he makes fun things for children of all ages. So without further ado, I'm going to let Finbar present his book.
Thank you, Zelda. Hello, everyone. It's lovely to be here and see you all. So this is my book, Witch. It's written and illustrated by me. There's some lovely drawings in there somewhere. And so, well, what's Witch about? It's a young adult book, and it's set during the 17th century at the time of the First Civil War. It's a story about 15-year-old Evie, who, along with her 9-year-old sister Dill, they witnessed the brutal killing of their mother by witch hunters. And Evie is consumed by a lust for revenge on these men, but she's also sworn to keep her sister safe. What else can I tell you? The setting is in Somerset, so it's kind of near where I live. I was kind of on the locations and going to visit them when I was getting my setting right for this book. So the bit I'm going to read in my passing for a West Country accent, I'll have to give that provision, is when Evie and Dill have escaped the witch hunters and they're on their way to the coven to seek help. And so, yes, here we go. The wind moaned as we made towards the ridge. My legs ached from the climb and from the running. Fear makes you faster. Dill ran on with Spring, showing her all there was to see under the great sky. 2 pups now waved my skirt. We had to make the coven by nightfall. It'll be better then, better for all. We climbed on and up, heads down, and made for a brace of trees tilted by the wind. Dill hopped that last to claim her perch and crowed to the land below. She stopped and shouted back to me, her words blown away. Not far, I told you. But Dill only shook her head and shouted again. Sighing, I climbed to her side where the wind came rushing, and then I saw what she saw. They were across the valley, galloping fast. I pulled Dill low. Flintstones moved at my fingers. I counted them out. Meakin from town, Cooper from across the valley, Tom, a wicked lad. One burly who broke mother's arm, one thin who pissed upon her, one younger who smashed her skull. They have a leader, a tall one. I marked his black hat, proud of his pack. It's them, ain't it, Evie? If that beast howls, we're got. She don't howl. Dill stroked the wind through Spring's fur. Do you? Evie is a silly sister to think so. Yes, she is. Do you think of nothing but that stupid pup? Dill only stared ahead. That may be crosser. These men killed mother. I knows it, Evie. If you're not whispering to a dog, it's that stupid stone. It's not stupid. It's mother's, and I promised. I grabbed her. Look at me, will you? Leave me be. Sudden, a bird cried through our quarrel, swooped up out above the ridge. It was a hawk, lifting, searching. The riders looked up to this hunter as it dropped to the valley. Get lower, Dill. Pebbles slipped under our feet. We all watched that lord of the air as he frowned upon us. What is it, Evie? You know the birds. Goshawk. See? His pale crown. Ah, he's beautiful. That he was, as he felled the cloak of his speckled wings and fell as an arrow straight and silent to the land, or a rabbit broke and leapt this way and that, jumping, jumping, jumping. In a plunge of wings and beak and talons, the hawk struck. If there was a last cry, it was lost on the wind, like that rabbit he lifted away up into that white sky. And as we watched from high and below, the hunter, the hunted, I felt a pull in my heart, a song for my tender prey. Mark me, tall one, think you are the hawk? Nay, you are the rabbit spied from far above. Run quick, tall one, run ahead and see. Think your beak is sharp, my love? Nay, tall one, not as sharp as me. And like the hawk, I watched him as he raised to rally his pack. They kicked on, one behind the other, like black ants across the earth. So I opened my fingers and I squashed them tight in my sight. There you go.
Really good.
I think your West Country accent's pretty good.
Had plenty of practice
Straight
now.
right up, landlord. Inappropriate. That was really great reading. Thank you so much, Finbar. Which is available everywhere now. So
Yes, out on the 1st, on Thursday.
Cool. So next I'm going to bring on Jazz Binder. Oh, sorry, no, I've managed to mess up. Loris Owen, who is going to read from her new book. There are quite a few debuts here today. So Loris Owen was born in Bolton, but made in Zimbabwe. She's lived and worked in several countries in Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. She grew up loving Roald Dahl, J.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, Susan Cooper, and Lewis Carroll. And there's nothing she enjoys more than adventure stories about other worlds. Her favourite contemporary authors include Philip Pullman, Marcus Zusak, Kieran Larwood, and Louis Sachar. Animals and nature have always been a creative force in Loris's writing, and you'll always find a lovable animal somewhere in her stories. So she's going to introduce you to the world of quicksmiths. Take it away, Loris.
Thank you, Zelda. It's great to be here at the Brixton BookJam Youth Lockdown Special. And as Zelda says, I'm going to be reading from the 10 Riddles of the Quicksmith, which is my first book, and it's the first book in the Quicksmith series. It has a rather smashing map at the front, if you like books with maps. And it's also got some lovely illustrations inside, if I can find one to show you. Let me see, there we go. That's a pretty scary one. Sorry, everyone, it's a scary skull, but there are some non-scary illustrations as well. And the book is all about riddles. There's also a competition to solve 2 riddles hidden inside the book and win super duper prizes. So the book is about a boy called Kip Bramley. And when Kip receives a cryptic invitation from a beetle-shaped drone that seems to be breathing, he has absolutely no idea that his world is going to change forever. And soon he finds himself at Quicksmith's College of Strange Energy, and he finds himself solving riddles in this treasure hunt that was set 400 years ago by the mysterious genius Eartha Quicksmith. So I'm going to read today from a little way into the book in chapter 4, where Kip has just arrived at Quicksmith's College of Strange Energy, along with his pet flying squirrel, Pinky, and they've just met Kip's new roommate, Albert. A rustling came from underneath the messy desk, and a boy about Kip's age emerged. As he straightened up, his eyes came to the same level as Kip's, but his hair made him seem at least a head taller. It looked as if all the ideas inside his brain had exploded in a wiry black starburst. "I'm Albert Masvingo," said the boy. "Kip Bramley," said Kip. "Well then, welcome to Albert and Kip's room," said Albert, "because we're roomies. Hope you don't mind, I chose a desk already." Kip put down his rucksack and Pinky's travel box. "Desk's a desk," he said. "Where are you from?" "I'm Zimbabwean," said Albert. "And Irish." "Zimbwish." "Not Ibarbwean." "Either way," laughed Albert. "What about you? Where are you from?" "I live in London," said Kip, "but I'm not from there." Albert held out a jar of peanut brittle. Kip took a piece and Albert shook the jar so Kip would take some more. Pinky's travel box rattled in reply and Albert bent down to look inside. 2 vigilant eyes studied him back. "Is that a hovering hamster?" "No, wait, an abseiling chinchilla." "Oh, how could I be so stupid? It's a flying squirrel." Kip grinned, impressed. "Most people wouldn't recognize a flyer. My brother did a biology project on them last year. Is this one of those ones that glow in ultraviolet light?" "You do know your flyers, bright pink. That's why we called her Pinky." Albert turned to Kip. "Can I hold her?" "She can be a bit shy at first," Kip said. "I'll be careful," Albert said. It was hard not to be protective of Pinky, especially after what had nearly happened to her. But now when Albert scratched at the side of the travel box, Pinky scratched back. So Kip took Pinky out, gave her to Albert, and watched carefully. After all, Pinky was his best good guyometer. Once Pinky had given Albert a thorough sniffing and decided he was definitely a friend, she rolled on her back and stuck out all 4 paws. This opened out the cape of soft skin between her arms and legs, so she looked like a miniature furry manta ray. "She's awesomic," said Albert, tickling her sugar-white underbelly. "Where did she come from?" "It's a long story," said Kip. Please, said Albert. It has to be at least as interesting as she is. Okay, you win, said Kip. Before we moved to London, Dad worked in a really posh restaurant. For people who have so much money, they don't know what to do with it. Basically, you could bring whatever you wanted, and the chefs would cook it for you. Anything at all? Well, said Kip, I saw some weird things there. But one day, a woman in a snakeskin dress gave Dad a padlocked picnic basket. She said she wanted an omelette for a special breakfast the next day and gave Dad a key for the basket. What was inside? Asked Albert. Kip looked at Pinky. No. Dad thought she might be an endangered species and brought her home. She was really tame, so we knew she hadn't just been caught from the wild. You can't cook her, I said. But Dad said that if he didn't, he'd have to quit. And if he had to quit, he'd have to find a new job and we might have to move house. That's a pretty big decision. It was, said Kip. We agreed that it didn't matter where we lived, but it was life or death for Pinky. Even if Dad refused to turn her into an omelette, we couldn't hand her back because she was going to end up in a frying pan. And although she wasn't technically ours to take, that was that. Dad quit the next day, he found a job in London, and we moved to the estate. Wow, said Albert, looking at Pinky and then at Kip. Wow. So whenever I have a bad day and come home to see Pinky, Kip finished, all my problems don't seem that terrible after all. I mean, at least no one's trying to eat me. That's an amazing story. Pinky's the luckiest glowflyer in the world, said Albert. I'm the lucky one, said Kip. And good word, by the way, glowflyer. Albert put Pinky on the desk, where she skipped about happily exploring the clutter. Balling up a piece of paper, Albert sat down and then threw it to Kip. Back and forth it went while they spoke. So do you know why you're here? I think it's something to do with the drawings I do, said Kip, a bit embarrassed. They're connected to strange energy, maybe, but Professor Moe said it's too early to say. What about you? I'm a bit rubbish at chemistry and German and all that stuff, but I sort of get time, said Albert. Like the stretch limo, said Kip. I love that car, said Albert. Jeannie told me there's a strange energy called time yarn. It sort of distorts time. What, like time warps, said Kip. Sort of. You know, time is always doing crazy things, slowing down and speeding up and sometimes getting stuck, but we've got no way of measuring it properly. The closest thing we have is a clock. It lets us see time the same way a windmill lets us see the wind.
Brilliant.
Hey, okay.
That was really well read. I think, you know, as the new authors, Finbar and Loris, you sound so seasoned when you're reading your work. It's really, really impressive stuff.
Oh, thank you, Zelda. I must admit, I had a practice run earlier.
Always.
Me too. Me too.
So great. I mean, I heard a little bit of those books because we've been doing screen tests, because we've also had a little practice run just to make sure it works, and it was so nice to hear the whole excerpt. I really enjoyed that. Okay, we're actually almost running on time, although we will have some time afterwards to have a nice chat about the books that we've heard. So I'm going to introduce you our last writer of the evening, which is Jasbinder, who I almost introduced accidentally a moment ago before Loris. She's an award-winning writer, born in a stable near the foothills of the Himalayas. Not everybody can say that. And until she was 18 months, lived on a farm inhabited by a grumpy camel and a monkey called Oma. Jasbinder's debut, Asha and the Spirit Bird, was nominated for the Carnegie Medal 2019, longlisted for the Brentford Bows 2019, the Jalek Prize 2020, and shortlisted for the Waterstones Book Prize 2020, and won the Costas Children's Book Award 2019. She's going to be reading to us from the follow-up book, Tamarind and the Star of Ishtar, which is another magical realist adventure set in the Himalaya. So I'm going to hand over to you, Jasbinder. Take it away.
Yeah, hi everybody. So lovely to be here, and thank you to Brixton BookJam for inviting me. So tonight I'm going to read a chapter from my latest book. I'm just going to flash it because it's got very lovely gold writing that sort of glitzers as it hits the light. So I'm going to be reading from this book, and this is a magical realist story like my debut, Asher and the Spirit Bird. It's about 11-year-old Tamarind who travels from Bristol to her grand ancestral home in the Himalaya for the very first time. And once she's there, she discovers a magical garden, a secret garden that's forbidden. She meets a mysterious mountain girl and her monkey Hanu. And she starts to uncover the secrets that have surrounded her mother's death when Tamarind was a baby. So the story is full of magic and it's full of surprises. Tamarind is a keen footballer as well. And so she sort of goes to her family home for the very first time and meets her mum's family that she has never ever met before. So the chapter I'm going to read is about the third of the way through. It's chapter 10. And at this moment, it's the very first time that Tamarind finds the magical garden. And she's just met the monkey Hanu, and he's leading her through the forbidden wild garden, where she's going to discover some magic and some secrets. So here we go. I storm away from the hut, Sophia's words slicing into me like a knife, but I won't look round. I just keep walking straight ahead, shoulders back. Tears spill down my cheeks and fall in huge drops to the ground. She's right. I don't know anything about my mum. And just when I'd found something that belonged to her, something special, that's been snatched away from me too. I wipe away my tears as I reach the house. But when I gaze up at the veranda and my bedroom window, I suddenly don't want to go inside. Instead, I raise my eyes to the stars and try to hold on to the feeling I had when I wore Mum's ring. Like a spark of knowledge that it was all meant to be, that I was meant to come here, that I belong. A thought keeps prickling the back of my mind and it won't go away. What if the beam of light from the ring was leading me somewhere? It was so strong and so bright when I held it up to the window, brighter than a torch beam. What if it's not all just tiredness and jet lag? What if there really is something like magic in this place? If Sophia hadn't interrupted me, I would have found out more, but now she's taken it. Thoughts whirlpool around my mind, and I know there's no way I could fall asleep. I sit on the damp lawn and listen to the night sounds of the garden. Insects clicking and whirring, leaves rustling, owls hooting. After a while, I hear a familiar screaming noise behind me, quite near. I sit up, my eyes widening, as I notice a monkey sitting on the grass nearby. It's definitely the strange golden monkey I saw in the hut before. I can tell by the silver in his fur. When he moves, shifting closer towards me, it's like he's got a halo of gold dust all around him, his fur standing out against the darkness of the night. I really didn't imagine it before. He stands and leaps away through the garden towards the wild bit, before hesitating, glancing back at me. He wants me to follow him. But how can I go? After what Arjun said about the dangers lurking out here. I gaze at the indigo night beyond the lawn, worry churning my stomach at the thought of what could be hidden there. The monkey runs back to me and impatiently opens his mouth to make that awful screaming noise. Shh, I whisper, glancing up at the house, and he stops. Does he really understand me? I zip my warm jumper up to the top, glad I thought to wear it earlier, and keep my hand clasped around the torch in the pocket. Suddenly, I don't care about the danger. I need answers, and I know I won't find them unless I follow him. The monkey takes my hand and leads me past the hut, where I step quietly, afraid of attracting Sophia's attention, deeper and deeper into the wild garden. Where is he taking me? Suddenly, he drops my hand, gives one of his high-pitched screams, and sprints ahead. Wait, come back! Don't leave me in the dark! I run after him, chasing through the high grass. I shine the torch into the dark, trying to catch a glimpse of the monkey's gold fur. I see him. I run faster, my breath ragged, feet pounding the ground. It feels good, clean air burning my lungs. I want the smoky blue night to swallow me whole. I keep going, further away from the hut and the house, stumbling into brambles sharp with thorns that tear at my skin. Suddenly, running doesn't feel so good anymore. How big are these gardens? They seem to go on forever. Picking through the patch of brambles forces me to slow down, and I pause to catch my breath. Sophia's probably trying on Mum's ring. I imagine it now, swallowing the lump in my throat. Tomorrow, I'm determined I'll get the ring back. The wind shakes the leaves of the trees, and they rustle as if they're breathing secrets. I peer ahead, trying to work out which way the monkey went, and shine the torch into a blanket of ghostly mist, which drops around me like a cloak. I trip forwards, arms straight ahead, trying to feel for something to anchor me, but there's nothing to grab hold of. The ground feels soft, almost wet, and my feet squelch and slip. I feel a tugging on my sleeve, and when I look down, there's a tiny hand wrapped around my fingers. Hello again. I let out the tight breath at last. I thought I'd lost you. He seems tired and slowly pulls me along through the thinning mist, making high-pitched chattering noises. When I glance down, I see the arc of impossible gold dust as he flicks his tail through the night air. I let the monkey lead me further into the undergrowth, further into the unknown. Black, shadowy tree limbs appear on either side, spreading their branches low. The monkey and I walk hand in hand through the milky darkness, where a white owl crosses our path, shuddering its wings, making my heart rap harder. I'm glad you're here, I tell him, clutching his hand more tightly. But where are you taking me? Are we even in the garden anymore? He gives me a little monkey grin and squeezes my hand back. The sky above us brightens and a full moon spreads jagged shadows across the snow-capped mountains in the distance. There in front of me, lit up by moonbeams, is a crumbling stone archway smothered in spiraling plants, the entrance to a neglected part of the garden. On top of the arch is a worn statue of a majestic-looking woman, standing tall with vast wings behind her. To either side sit two stone owls. Her feet are talons, and she rests them lightly on two lions who lie beneath her. One hand is raised as if she's beckoning me forward. Suddenly, the monkey chatters and disappears into the trees. Sweat beads across my forehead. Where am I? I need to turn back. This is stupid. I can't even see the house anymore. There are wolves out here, maybe other things too. An icy wind lifts the leaves gathered at the foot of the archway, swirls them until they lift off the ground and rise to the top, falling through the air like dark snow. An echoing giggle from behind me makes me jump, and I hear the tune I heard when I arrived, but the humming, lilting voice is closer this time, closer and closer. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you so much, Jasbinder.
Very good.
So can I just ask you, Jasbinder, have you lived in the Himalaya then? After you were 18
well, I was born there, and I sort of, the inspiration for my story are all the family stories that my, particularly my grandma used to tell when I was growing up. But I've been back as an adult.
Yeah. I actually spent quite a bit of time there in my early 20s. It's so very beautiful, isn't it? And amazingly temperate, actually, in the lower Himalaya, like lots of orchards and alpine meadows. So you really transported me to that world then. So I think that's everybody today. I was so lost in the reading that I just suddenly remembered that we've actually had 6 wonderful writers and a band, and sadly the cavalcades of talent and genius and stories has to come to an end for now. But thank you so much to everybody who's taken part in this. We wouldn't be able to do BookJam without the wonderful writers and musicians that help us. And also our stage manager, Stuart Taylor, who's hiding in the background there, making sure that sound and everything is all right. I'm going to unmute everybody now. We haven't got any more, except for Stuart, sadly, because he's in the same room and it creates a weird echo. So mute the husband seems a bit...
keep him muted.
Keep him muted. That was just really wonderful. Thank you very much. I've also got to thank Vanessa, who's been helping to just make sure that we haven't been Zoom bombed, which would be a dreadful thing to have a kid Zoom bombed. And I think that's everything. I didn't get any audience questions through, so I haven't particularly got anything to ask anyone, but I've really enjoyed all the readings this evening.
Yeah, they were great.
We want to ask each other any questions? Yeah, I mean, we've got the Zoom room will never shut. It's like the Hotel California, although unlike the Hotel California, you can actually leave. We're not going to chain you to the bench.
Yeah.
A modern slavery experiment.
Tommy's rumbling, actually.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for coming along. We'll be releasing this as it's going to be available on YouTube. I've put the link so you can share that with people, anybody who missed it, and any excerpts you want of readings will also be available, and we'll put them on the website. And we'll probably be doing an event for adults in about a month's time, so keep your eyes peeled, and maybe plan another kids one soon. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you,
it's been really great.
Thank you, Zelda. Thank you, Stuart. Thanks, Vanessa.
Yeah.
Oh, Jasper and Merle say thank you. Mary said thank you very much for the bedtime stories. So I think what I sometimes forget is that there's some children behind every single adult Zoom. Quite a few kids have been having a lovely bedtime.
Oh, wonderful.
Very much. So,
yeah, great music, actually. That was really...
It was really amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah. Actually, the bookshop bands, I really urge you. They've got hundreds of songs that they've written about all kinds of books. They're really wonderful and available for book launches, just saying.
We're also writing for an Aardman animation as well, so there's a link between us and Finbar there.
Oh, okay. Well, I can hook you lot up afterwards. So yeah, I think actually, if I was to find out how everybody's arrived here today, there is an interesting web of links between everybody. So yeah, it's obviously.
I would love to see that spider graph.
I shall produce one in Omnigraph. Actually, I haven't used Omnigraph for ages. It's so cool. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to leave you to your mugs of tea. I've been enjoying my mug of tea.
Yes. Nice to meet all the other authors as well.
Yeah, that's half the point of BookJam, I think, is it's a nice place for authors to actually get to meet each other and see how other people practice their art. So.
Yeah, all the readings great.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
They're really enjoyable.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone. BookJam, over and out.
See you the next one.
Bye.
See you the next time.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.